Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back. I know it's been a very long time, 10 days actually, to the Anfield Talk YouTube channel. Obviously, the TAT pod live and direct on YouTube since last season, to be fair. But yeah, we're here. We're good. We had a little break. I know a lot of other channels were doing like draft games and just sort of fillers. And I just thought, you know what? Let's just chill. Let's just have a break, and we'll come back and we'll go ham. Because Mike, we've got games coming thick and thin, mate, over the next few weeks. How are you feeling, mate?
Mate, I'm feeling refreshed. It's been, I think me and you needed a break from each other. I think we must have seen each other more than our families for the start of the season.
Yeah,
Nah, mate, it's. I think the international, no one likes them. I don't even think people that enjoy international football enjoy them too much. But listen, games come thick and fast now for all the Prem teams and teams in Europe like ourselves. It'll be sorry, it sounds like a slide to get a Wolves fan there. I didn't mean that, but it's exciting. It's exciting to see what's going to happen, man. I think there's a lot to come.
absolutely. And we've got special guest representing Wolves. I know at first glance you might think it's Diogo Jota. It's not. It is Paul from Always Wolves Fan TV. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast, and what a pleasure to be compared to such a hero as Diogo Jota. He's still held in very high regard by the Wolves supporters.
Absolutely. There was that famous tweet. I don't know if you saw it. That always gets retweeted when Jota does a madness, and I think it was a Wolves fan saying we've absolutely fleeced Liverpool for 40 million, and that comes out every time. So me and Mike are hoping it comes out on Saturday evening. We'll see. But guys, I don't know how many of you are in here because StreamYard is bugging, and I'm not going to leave them come back because I can't be bothered, quite frankly. But yeah, make sure you smash the like button if you are. Leave a comment. Let me know what you're saying, what you thought about this game. And just before I do get into it, I've got something I need to show you guys. So, obviously, if you've been watching TAT Pod, you will know that we have been sponsored by Your Foot Card, which is a website where you can customize your Ultimate Team cards. You can get your own face on them, or you can get other players. And I've been showing the website every single week. But Your Foot Card, and take a look at this. This is Alexander-Arnold's new the time they sent me this card. But yeah, you can now get your EFC cards from Your Foot Card, 15% off if you use TAT Pod. You can get a Kenny Dalglish one, absolute boss. And spoiler alert, actually, I tweeted about it, didn't I, Mike? I can say it now. I'm going to be speaking to a very good friend of this man in just over a week's time. I'm going to be interviewing Sammy Lee, so make sure you watch out for that. And this is my favorite one, Mo Salah, the king. This is going on my wall. I just need to get a command strip. But yeah, the quality is absolutely immense on this. It's like metallic on the back as well. It's a fingerprint magnet. So I don't want to show it too much, but if you put that on your wall with a command strip, it's going to look absolutely boss. So 15% off if you use TT Pod at checkout. Make sure you check the link in the description for all things foot cards. Now let's get back to which one is it? There we go. I'm terrible with technology, but we're back. We're good. So yeah, Wolves fans as well. If there's any watching here, you can go and create your own custom Mateus Cunha cards or anything like that. So yeah, there we go. Thank you once again to Your Foot Card. But let's get straight into it. Let's talk about the game. And Anfield lad obviously is in the chat. Of course he is.
Always.
Of course he is. And a good friend of mine, Jay Hart, says, hi, Benji. Not sure why you call me Benji. That's a bit weird. And Georgie says, big up TAT. Club football is finally back. And it is indeed. Let's go straight to the guest, Paul. We want to talk about your start to the season. And I know you might not necessarily want to talk about it, but this is how we always start our preview shows. We go to the guest and we just sort of get a summary of the season so far. And looking at your results, you lost to United 1-0, you lost to Brighton 4-1, you beat Everton, so thanks for that, because we are all hoping that they go down. Then beat Blackpool. Well, you didn't beat Blackpool, you absolutely obliterated Blackpool in the Cup 5-0. You lost to Palace away, and you sit 15th in the table. So just summarise what the Wolves fans are feeling about the start of the season, and obviously changing the manager as well. How's that affected things?
Yeah, I think overall it's probably not far off what we thought we would have in terms of points. We've had a very difficult start. Man United away, Brighton at home. Those were our first two matches. Palace is never an easy place to go and get a result as well. And I think if you take our performances, probably we should have more points than 3, because maybe you saw us against Man United on that Monday Night Football. We played really well. We had a Stonewall penalty not given in additional time. So really, we probably should be on 4 points, and we're on 3. It's probably there or thereabouts what we expected, to be honest. Yes, we would have liked more, but I'm not too disappointed overall with the start that we've made. What I will say is Gary O'Neill's come into the job very late. He only picked up the reins, about a week or less than a week even before the start of the season. So he hasn't had time yet to put his imprint on the squad. So we've seen 4 very different performances. We don't know what kind of team we are yet, but 3 points from 4 matches is probably there or thereabouts compared with what we expected.
Yeah, I think in terms of your performances, I watched the United and the Palace game, the only 2 games I've seen of you. Obviously, you have that great result against Blackpool in the Cup, which part of you obviously expected, but hey, it's important to go to the next stage. When I looked at the Palace game,
just one second, good, yeah.
A little bit staticky, but near clear.
Is it still? Oh, I don't
No,
know what's
you're
going
good.
on.
No,
Give me 1 second.
No, you were good then. Yeah, I'll keep you updated, mate. But in terms of in terms of the Palace game, I think the one thing I thought, to be honest, you look a bit solid going forward for a change, which for Wolves the last couple of years, I think has been an issue for you. Yeah. I think where it's breaking down for you is probably your defensive shape. I think you just look a bit. I don't know whether it's concentration, because I think you've got some good players there. I think it was you lost Collins, obviously, over the summer. Very talented young centre-back. It's a shame to obviously lose him. But in terms of defensively, are you a bit worried? Because transfer-wise, you weren't able to get enough done. So what are your thoughts in that respect?
Yeah, I mean, the reason that we stayed up last season, the main 2 reasons, was our home form and our ability to keep clean sheets, especially at home. So it is strange that it just seems to... Yeah, exactly. I mean, it does seem strange that it's flipped somewhat, that we do perhaps look a bit more promising going forwards. But at the same time, in 2 matches, we've conceded 3 goals in the second half. 3 goals very quickly. I think there's an argument, and perhaps we'll see this on Saturday, where he'll go back to a back 3. And I know from his time at Bournemouth, Gary O'Neill alternated between a 3 and a 4.
Yeah.
So I think to shore things up, he'll bring Totti Gomez in and go to a back 3, and maybe that's what we need to do. We're not going to outscore teams. We're not strong enough going forwards to do that. But what we did prove last season is that we can be hard to beat. So I think you've got to get a solid foundation and then build from there.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, just to touch on that one more. The tangents Ben was talking about pre conversation, but just touching that on a bit more. In terms of the transfers that you've done in this time over the summer, we're talking about obviously the players that you brought in, but the players you've let go of 3 players that I'd argue were vitally important. You have Raul Jimenez. I know he wasn't himself once he returned from his injury, which is obviously a shame. And then Matheus Nunes as well. So in terms of the club and the fan base itself, how do you feel about the squad that you have going into the season?
I think we were always prepared that this summer was going to be challenging. We spent quite a bit in January. People often forget that. We spent 43 million on Matheus Cunha. So that was necessary, though, because we were probably going to go down without that.
Yeah.
So that's the backdrop that we're coming into the summer with. And then we get this message from Jeff Shee, our chairman, to say that we're in big danger of falling foul of FFP. It's interesting because I know that Everton have got a charge against them at the moment, and I think Man City as well. But no other clubs seem to be so blatantly obvious that they're so worried about it compared with us.
Yeah.
So we were told as fans pretty much don't expect a net spend. There's going to be outgoings. We need to balance the books because we're teetering very close to that £105 million that you can't exceed in terms of losses in 3 years. So we pretty much knew Neves was going, as much as we would have loved him to stay. Everybody accepted that. You mentioned the Nunes transfer as well. We've made a very healthy profit on him in 12 months. And last season, as encouraging as we thought he might be, in spells, 1 goal, 1 assist. Those are the hard facts, really.
Can I just touch on Nunes just real quick? It almost felt inevitable because I don't know what you saw from a Wolves perspective, and obviously we'll get onto the game in a few moments. But when you signed Matheus Nunes on our end, we all read reports from very reliable people saying that he's basically going to do a year at Wolves. And at this point of time, a year back, it looked like he was going to come to us the following season. Obviously, something happened along the way, and for whatever reason, we withdrew the interest. But is it right in saying that Wolves fans were always prepared to, only have him for a year?
Maybe 2 years. I think that's what I thought. We always knew that based on his reputation, and Pep Guardiola came out and said he's one of the best midfielders in the world, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
So it was a major coup, really, for us to get him in the first place. It was quite a big fee for a club of our size, but it wasn't like it was 60, 70 million. I think it was 38, the initial fee that we paid for it.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, we knew that we'd be a stepping stone unless we managed to get back into the Europa League ourselves. But we probably thought we'd get another year out of him. But I think this FFP concern has hastened the matter. And actually, with him going on strike, just before he moved to Man City, I think it's probably not a bad deal for us. And getting Tommy Doyle in return at a really cheap price, I think it's probably good business on the whole, although it's sad to see him not, fulfill his potential at Wolves.
Yeah, listen, Doyle's a great signing as well. I think, he was one of the ones coming through with Palmer at City. I must admit, I'm surprised City let go of Doyle and Palmer in the same window. Yeah. I know a lot of people think, City just buy whatever they want, but I think letting go of Palmer and Doyle was surprising because I think it was those two and Foden were the kind of young lads coming through that everyone looked at from a City perspective. I know because one of my mates is a City fan. He doesn't shut up about it. He's like, no, we have youth prospects as well. Trust me. Not anymore. So it was surprising, but I think he is a good signing for you. I think you mentioned something there that I just want to touch on briefly. Your chairman coming out with that statement. I think a lot of times when clubs are in disarray, I remember when we had Hicks and Gillette and our club was in an absolute shambles, the chairman doesn't come out. The chairman doesn't talk. It's very, if anything, they'll try and dismiss it and they'll be like, no, we're trying to just run our club the right way. So for a chairman to come out and say something along these lines where it's quite nail on the head with it, really, if we don't sell, the club's in an awful position. How much did that scare you as a fan?
Yeah, I appreciated the honesty, first of all, but we probably didn't realise perhaps how precarious the situation was.
Right.
And there's also this confusion about we can't be the only club that has made similar losses like that over a 3-year period. We can't be in the Premier League. And it just makes me wonder about why we're taking it really to the letter when other teams are. I mean, you can think of people like Chelsea, for instance. You mentioned Everton already. They seem to keep pushing and pushing and pushing the boundary.
Yeah.
Whereas our chairman wants us to absolutely, under no circumstance, break any rules. So it just makes me wonder about, we haven't seen yet, what's the punishment going to be for an Everton? So...
Well, I think on that, sorry to cut across you again, but I think on that in general, it's an interesting issue because I think your chairman's doing the right thing. He's being forthright. He's trying to deal with the situation as is. But I suppose when you look at an Everton who it's almost like act now and ask for apologies later. Don't get me wrong, it's not worked for them by any means. They're not in any better position as a result. But the Chelsea one, they're smart with it, but they're not. They use the contract length to kind of work around it. It's about how much you're losing per season rather than, you know what I mean? So they lengthen out to 7-8 years. And respectfully, you won't see someone signing an 8-year contract with Wolves. I don't see anyone signing one with Liverpool. So it is a frustration. I think right now Wolves maybe are playing the smart game, to be honest, in terms of ownership, because when Everton get punished, and they will, it's about how they're punished. Is it going to be a points deduction? And a club in that position can't afford a points deduction. It'll scupper any chances you have in the future. So we'll move on, but there's a whole conversation there that to be had at some point for sure.
I mean, yeah, you could talk about this stuff all day. Could almost do a whole podcast on it. But let's get back to the football, and we'll give Dave a little break. We'll talk about Liverpool for a couple of moments, Mike. And I'm not going to spend too long on this because we've obviously covered every Liverpool game so far. We've covered every single pre-season. But yeah, just thoughts, mate. So far, we're 4 games in. We sit on 10 points out of 12. We've had this conversation before, but just for the sake of this podcast, if we said at the start of the summer, like after those fixtures came out, that after the first international break, Liverpool will be sat on 10 points out of 12. We've won it Stamford Bridge at the Newcastle. We drew at Stamford Bridge, which are two of the toughest away games, I think. And then the other results against Villa, who are pushing. Well, that's what people said at the start of the season for a sort of top 7 or 8 finish. And then obviously Bournemouth, everyone expects us to beat them, but the way we did it with 10 men as well. Yeah, just summarise it, mate, so far, and what can we take into this Wolves game from what we've seen?
I think thus far, I don't want to jinx it, but I think the best thing is the performances have been convincing. So it's not like we've played in last season. I'm sure Paul probably watched it with a bit of a smile on his face, as you should when any big team starts stumbling a little bit.
That's when they battered us 3-0.
Yeah. Well, listen, I didn't want to bring it up, but I think realistically, it's good. I think it was very concerning last year, just in terms of performance. There was a lack of energy. There was a lack of work rate being put in by a lot of the players. And it's just a lack of desire, just in general.
Yeah.
And I think this season, the individuals who potentially could have been scapegoated for that have been removed from the squad, whether it was just them or not. And you can see this refreshed energy within the team.
Scapegoat, mate. Trust me, it's Joel Matip at the minute, apparently.
Well, they're on the hunt for a new scapegoat. Listen, that's as with any fan base, as again, I'm sure Wolves have theirs. Like Liverpool
Robertson
fans
as well is a big one.
Robertson's a big one. I take issue with that personally. I don't know what it is. I'm very invested in Robertson as a player, but like we bought him for $8 million. He's just been nothing but brilliant. And to be honest, in terms of players that were playing their heart out last season, he was still doing it. Even if they weren't good performances, he was still trying. But yeah, listen, fans will always look for another scapegoat. Again, conversation for another time. But in terms of performances, I think we played fantastically well. I think McAllister and Szoboszlai both look like brilliant signings. I think Kwanzaa has made a good couple of appearances and looks solid. I think Enzo still needs time to bed in. I think we'll see the best of him in the Europa League games, and I'm not concerned. I think he put a great performance in against Germany as well, which was great to see.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone looks sharp. Nunez looks the best I've seen him. And that's obviously very exciting. And I do hope we start it. I know we won't start him because he's been playing in South America, but I hope he gets a good run of games now, coming up thick and fast. Yeah. And listen, I think what's fantastic is it's hard for some negative fans to find a scapegoat at the moment because of how well everyone's playing. I think that's always a good sign.
Exactly. Just before I give my 2 cents, Swifty, yes, we are doing that. We finish on that, actually. So stick around. Stay tuned for that. I'm going to let Mike do it, and then I'll tell him on what he's wrong in. So stick around.
Yeah, that's about right.
But yeah, though, I echo what you've just said there, Mike. The things we wanted to see come back into this Liverpool team from what we've been accustomed to over the last 5 or 6 years with Jurgen Klopp. We've seen so far, and I know it's only 4 games in, and everything can go pear-shaped, touch wood. But we've seen the pressing, we've seen Liverpool just blitzing teams going forward, defending. There could be a couple things to improve on. Trent. It's not necessarily been his defending, in fairness. It's been more of his concentration. Giving balls away in silly areas. But that's the positive for me. Like, we're 10 points out of 12. We've not lost a game yet, and there's still room for a lot of improvement. And I think that's a big thing. So I'm very happy and confident. Again, it's really nice to be confident in this Liverpool team once again, because there was a point last season where, whether I was going to games or whether I was watching them at home, there just came a point where it just felt like I'm just going to watch, and whatever happens, happens. I don't really have, any sort of encouragement by this team or any optimism. I just watched it and saw what happened. And if we won, amazing. If we lost, it is what it is. But this season now, it just feels like every game we play, I'm going into it thinking, oh, we're going to do something here. So, yeah, it's absolutely brilliant to have that feeling back once again. Let's come back to Dave. And I remember a Wolves game last season. I went to a couple of them. The one we won 2-0 at Anfield, the FA Cup game, and then also the reverse game at your ground where Harvey Elliott scored. What I remember from one of the games last season, I think Lopetegui was just appointed. And this is what I want to touch on now, because it seemed from me, looking in from the outside, that the fans had already taken to Lopetegui straight away. They were singing his name. There was just a sense of excitement I could feel from your away fans. And obviously he was sacked before the season started. And sorry, you're Paul, aren't you? I just realised I called you Dave.
I was too polite to correct you.
Honestly.
Yeah, no, sorry. Someone just said it privately to me. But yeah, it seemed like you'd taken him in, and all the Wolves fans were buzzing for him. And also, he's just been sacked before the start of the season. So, what was that like? Was it expected? And also, what can the new manager do to sort of turn things around?
Yeah, I mean, you said about that optimism from last season. Absolutely. I mean, Molineux was a fortress since Lopetegui came in, and we lost to Man United just before New Year. But then our last 9 home matches, we won 7 out of them, keeping 7 clean sheets, which, that's the kind of home form that you guys have, not us. So we did feel really optimistic, and I felt we were punching above our weight, and I think people bandy around the term world-class manager easily, but if you're manager of Real Madrid and if you're manager of Spain and you managed Spain for 2 years and you don't lose a single match, for me, that's a sign of a world-class manager.
Yeah. I think you're right. If he was doing this in Spain, if he took a team in Spain and replicated the exact same performance and form, you'd have British clubs and fans of teams over here calling for him, without a doubt. And I think you're well within your right to say that. I think just to clarify for a comment we had there about the sacking of Lopetegui, do you want to just explain that for people who are unaware in terms of the reason why that happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a bit more of a mutual thing, first of all. I don't think we can outright say that he was sacked. But yeah, I mean, there were some murmurings towards the end of the season, actually, that he wasn't quite happy. And personally, I think, again, like you said with Nunes, he might have been using us as a bit of a stepping stone. It was strongly linked with the Tottenham vacancy early on. The pundit Guillaume Balaguer is very good friends with him, and he was kind of hawking him around a little bit on Twitter, which the Wolves fans really took exception to, because at that point he'd taken us from bottom of the league at Christmas to comfortably safe in the end. So we were obviously really happy with the job that he did. But then early on in the summer, and it got worse and worse, there were these rumblings that he wasn't happy because he wasn't going to have any money to spend. Despite selling Neves, despite selling players like Collins, he was told that money was not available for him to go and spend money on because we just needed to address this loss that we have. So he informed Jeff Shee just before we played Celtic in pre-season, I think. There was some agreement reached. And he stayed in the post for about 2 weeks or so until Gary O'Neill was confirmed. So I guess it ended up being fairly amicable. He wanted to leave, and the fans here and the chairman, I think they were quite unhappy with how he'd spoken out, giving unauthorised interviews as well to Guillaume Balaguer.
Yeah. Wow.
Basically been a bit of a moaner. So it all ended okay in the end, but for a while it was
a bit toxic, wasn't it?
loggerheads, yeah.
Yeah, but from the outside looking in, it was a story I was weirdly invested in. I don't know why, because I don't know any Wolves fans, but I thought it was just an interesting one to watch because you have, as you say, you have this manager that proved himself throughout last season. I think you guys as fans loved him and wanted him to stay, but it felt similar to the Conte thing at Tottenham, where his relationship with the owner was just breaking down in front of the media's eyes, and the more public he could get it, the better, because I think he was trying to put pressure on to get funds, which unfortunately never came, and he made the move that he had to make, but it's one of those, isn't it? I think you still worked out well, though. I think Gary O'Neill's a good manager, and I do think you guys will comfortably stay up again this year. I do believe so.
Yeah, I remember when he left Bournemouth as well. Like we talk about shocks. I think that was a big shock. Because he'd done very well. Where did Bournemouth finish last season? It was
comfortable. That's for sure.
Below mid-table.
Just behind us,
just below mid-table. So, I think that was a big shock because obviously at the start of the season, everyone's tipping Bournemouth to go down. Sort of yo-yo club. But they became a team that was actually pretty tough to beat, especially away from home, as me and Mike know. But it's a few shocks there. I mean, like I say, I remember all the fans absolutely buzzing about him, singing his name for pretty much the entire game and after. So obviously, it seemed like the fans loved him, and it's something obviously gone up upstairs. Let's talk about the game then this Saturday. We've spoken about everything surrounding both clubs. Dave, I'm gonna come straight back to you, Paul. You know what it is, right? I'll tell you why I'm gonna call you Dave. I originally wrote these notes for Dave.
Yeah.
And now I'm
he's
reading
in charge of our podcast. So
yeah. So if you don't know, guys, Dave, who was originally supposed to come on, these notes were written for him. That's why I keep saying Dave. I'm reading my notes.
We prefer Paul.
And
We prefer Paul.
yeah.
I'm a Paul fan. I've always been a Paul fan.
Paul, I apologize. I'm not doing a Chelsea thing and calling him Dave when his name's not Dave. You know, that whole thing they do with us. I don't know what that's about. But
so silly.
yeah. Paul, there we go. I'll come back to you, mate. I don't want to cast your mind back to last season. And this is going to be a bit painful for me and Mike. You battered us 3-0. Neves, Nunes, and who else scored in that day?
Craig Dawson. I think the first goal was an own goal, actually, from Matip.
Oh, was it? Oh,
Classic.
yeah.
Classic.
But do you think, going back to that game, that Wolves can cause, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but another upset? Or are you thinking this time it could be the other way?
Well, you're right to say, cause an upset, because it would be. I mean, who's predicting us to win on Saturday? You've started off the season in great form. We've lost 4-1 at home to Brighton, 3-1 to Palace. So you could be in a position where you could pick us off on Saturday. But having said that, we played so well at Man United, and I don't know if it's because they maybe gave us a bit more freedom, a bit more space. We exploited them, and we should have taken something from that game. And
they're crap as well.
Yeah, I mean,
not taking anything away from you, but they're absolutely terrible.
And as you mentioned, we did save our best performances really against the bigger sides last season. We beat Chelsea at ours, we beat Spurs, beat Aston Villa, yourselves. Wow. So how can we hurt you? I guess if you give players like Cunha and Pedro Neto space, we can hurt you, because that's what Man United did, and it nearly cost them, and it should have cost them. But equally, if you score first, I think we would then have a bit of a mountain to climb, because I can't remember hardly any occasions where we've come from behind to win. I think it was maybe once since Christmas that we've done that. So yeah, give us space on the counter attack, and I think we could cause you problems. But other than that, I mean, if you offered me a draw now, I'd snap your hand off for a draw.
Just before we go to Mike, you mentioned Pedro Neto there, and this is an absolutely shameless plug for myself. But I'm a big fan of Pedro Neto. It goes back from 2020, and I did a tweet, Pedro Neto will be a top player, being brilliant for Wolves so far this season. And there was another tweet where I had to give my favourite player from all the clubs and then the non-Big Six club. And my non-Big Six club was Pedro Neto, and that was 2021. I think obviously it's pretty clear why he's not really gone on to the heights, which I think plenty would have, and that's down to injuries, right?
Yeah,
even though he's still a talented player, clearly.
Yeah, two different injuries, and he was our player of the year in the lockdown season.
Yeah,
blistering pace, direct, great left foot, chipping in with goals, assists. He tried to come back last season, and we didn't really see the best of him. This season, he does look like he's back to his old self. He got some minutes for Portugal in the international break. He's got more assists already this season than any player from Wolves last season. He's on 3 assists.
That's mad.
That's a fact.
Says more about the other players than it does him, I think. But listen, I think that's great. Neto was one of those players outside looking in I was always a fan of, and I'm glad that he's finding his form. He's not injury prone. I think he's just had 2 bad injuries. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Yeah. So I think that's exactly what it feels like, and that's a shame because I think they always seem to happen to the players you least want it to. You know, not that you want any player to get injured, but Neto's he's a real good talent. He's only still young. He's only 24, 25, right? Or is he a bit older than that now?
No, I think 23 or 24. And when we see the best of him for me is when he plays on the left. His right foot is weak. I want to see him going at his fullback, going on the outside and whipping crosses in. When we have Kalajic on the pitch as well, it's quite an old-fashioned combination, but it's one I think that can be effective for us.
Absolutely. And Mike, go back to the game, mate, and I'm going to ask for your opinions on how you think it's going to pan out. But George, he says here, and this is what I want you to discuss. We played Thiago and an 18-year-old Bajcetic and a wash. I'm not reading that bit out because I love Naby Keita. I refuse to read.
Read it out loud and accept the truth.
Versus Wolves last season, and this time will be different. Mike, what are you saying, mate? Are you saying that with I don't even know who's going to be the midfield. We'll get onto that. But with
Mm.
a better team, you could say less injuries, but let's not forget we have got some big absences this coming Saturday. But do you think it's going to be a completely different story from last season at Molineux?
I think it's going to be a different type of game. I'm always sensitive to ever say a different type of outcome, but I think it's going to be a very different type of game because I think both sides have different midfields, like very different midfields, especially in terms of caliber. I think you look at Wolves' midfield last season. Two of your three midfields aren't there anymore. You had Neves and Nunes, neither are there. They were, Neves specifically has been so crucial to Wolves for so many years, and he's not there anymore. What would you say your starting midfield is currently, Paul?
We're going to get onto it. But
is
do you want
it
to just do that now?
No. What their usual is, not their thing. But
in the last game, they played Lamina and Gomez as a 2.
Lamina, that's the one I was going to go on to. Lamina has always caused Liverpool problems when he's played against us, right? Genuinely has. You can look back and you can see it. I'm not saying they're going to win by any means, but he's a box to box powerful midfielder, very good high pressing, and he's also got a shot on him, right? And I think, don't get me wrong, I think if we end up playing, Szoboszlai, Jones, Gravenberch, or Szoboszlai, Jones,
I don't think Gravenberch will start, to be honest.
Well, we'll see. He's had 2 weeks under his belt training, so you never know. But if let's say that's the midfield. I mean, well, to some effect, I do think we still have a stronger midfield. I do think we'll overpower them. But I think where Wolves are going to potentially look good against us will be on the break because I'm not sure about any of them midfielders as defensive midfielders. Well, not without McAllister, because McAllister won't be in there. I think McAllister's done very well when he's filled in that role. Endo, I don't know. Away from home, I don't know whether I'd start him. So if that's Gravenberch, Jones, and Szoboszlai, I don't know. It could be very interesting. And obviously, we know we're susceptible to the counter-attack. And then you look at our defense currently, what it could be. We'll look at that later. So it's going to be an interesting game. I'm still very confident. I do think our front three will look very good against Wolves' defensive line. Like I mentioned earlier, I think your defensive shape is a weak point. I think with the pace that we have, no matter who we play in that front three, it's going to be interesting. I think if you start with a back five, to be honest, though, I think you'd shoot yourself in the foot because you'd be given all the room in the midfield to Szoboszlai and whoever we have, and Trent as well. You don't want to give room to Trent on the ball. If anything, you want to put pressure on him, so you'd want that extra body in midfield. But obviously, listen, I'm no tactician. I'm a sofa football fan. You know what I mean? But we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be
as well, but I doubt Trent's going to be playing.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
Everyone's saying like, "Oh, he's back in training," but it was only last week Paul Joyce said that he's out for 3 weeks.
Very true. So you might not even see Trent.
Only a week's gone, and now everyone thinks because he was there today, he's going to play. It's like, let's get straight.
He might not. But go on. What do you think?
I'm just going to get straight into it with Paul, to be honest. It's what the people want, and we want to give the people what they want. So, Paul, I mentioned putting you on the spot. I'm assuming this isn't the lineup, the formation you want.
I mean, based on what you just said, does it give the initiative when you play a back three instead of a back four? But I think there's a lot of Wolves fans that quite want us to go back to the formation that was so effective for us under Nuno, which was a 3-4-3 in effect with 2 central midfielders, 3 at the back, and an attacking 3. Back in the day, Traore, Jimenez, and Jota. That was so effective for us.
Yeah.
So I would be tempted because I think we've got the right wing back personnel to play that kind of formation again.
Let's go through it. So, is this up to date?
Yes, that's up to date. So it'll be Sarr in goal.
There we go.
And left centre back, I wouldn't be surprised if you brought Totti Gomez in. He's in the Portugal squad. Big fan favourite, and a lot of people calling for him to come in to shore things up. So then I think he'll play Kilman in the middle and Dawson to the right. And that's your back three. And you mentioned earlier, Mike, about pace. Liverpool have that in abundance. And I think without Totti, we might struggle there. So I think he'll bring Totti in to try and address this lack of pace issue.
That's a fair point.
And then I think he'll go, if you want to start on left wing back, I think he'll start Reina Nouri.
I love him, by the way.
Yeah, he's a talented player. We're yet to see him be really consistent for a prolonged period of time, but he is a young lad, highly rated. And I think, under the right coach, he can only continue to improve.
Yeah, I think he works best in a back five. You know what I mean? He's not like a natural left back, but I think left wing back, bombing up and down. I like him a lot. I
Like
think
the
he's
modern day
technically good.
left back, isn't he? More
Yeah,
than a traditional.
yeah.
Yeah, and you're right earlier. It's likely to be Lamina, João Gomez as the two midfielders. Neither are really attack minded, but I think if you're going to play a 3-4-3, then you need people to really occupy the centre of the pitch and not get stretched.
Mm.
We were linked with Gomez for a long time as well, by the way.
And Mario Lamina, I believe, this summer, that
Yeah.
was doing the rounds at our end, that Mario Lamina was a late target for Liverpool.
That's when we were linked with everyone, mate. To be honest, they were linked with me and Ben.
I think the Gomez one goes back to when he was at, who was it from Brazil?
Flamengo, is it?
Flamengo, that was it. Yeah, I think even Fabrizio kept tweeting about it as well. To be fair, saying that we were interested in him, but obviously nothing materialised. But who are we going for here, then, mate?
Matt Doherty needs to come in for me. Semedo's one good game, one bad game. And for me, Matt Doherty deserves his chance. He scored 2 goals in the Cup against Blackpool. He's perfectly suited to this formation.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then
Pedro Neto wide left.
Pedro Neto.
And then down the middle, for me, even though he's not a number 9, a bit like Roberto Firmino, really, I'd play Cunha. But I wouldn't have him up against the 2 centre-backs. And then on the right, probably our best goal scorer at the moment, Hwang Hee-chan.
That front three does look like it could do something, Mike, to me.
That set up on the break, I think, really well. It's got a bit of pace in that front three, a bit of creativity. And I think that's a pretty solid kind of back 7, if you like, looking at that. So personally, that's what I would do on Saturday.
Mike, what are your thoughts on that, mate?
This is what I was talking about before with them on the break. I think, now especially seeing it visually, maybe 5 at the back isn't a bad decision, actually. I think Matt Doherty and the fullback, there's a fullback on the left-hand side, rather, both, on the break, brilliant. The only reason Matt Doherty didn't work out at Tottenham was he didn't play 5 at the back. He's a good player. He just didn't play in the right formation of Spurs. My mum's a Spurs fan, trust me. My mum was fuming at it every time. You know what I mean? So, and then you've got the front three, Cunha, Neto, Hwang. I've got to be honest, I've not seen much of Cunha, so I can't really make a comment on him as a player. But if he's able to play the false 9 well, you drop him back on whoever we're playing as a 6, or make him put pressure on if we play the inverted fullback. It looks good. It does look very good on the break. Their only issue is getting the ball off us to break. That's going to be the thing.
Yeah. I mean, Cunha's got minutes for Brazil over the international break, which tells you about how highly they rate him. And he's a player that thrives on driving forward with the ball. Yep. We saw that in the Man United game. So, yeah, he could be one to watch.
The right-hand side. Your weakest point will be the right-hand side. I think Matt Doherty is very good, as I say, but I think him and Dawson, I don't think there's enough pace there. I think Dawson's a good centre-back and he reads the game well. But if, let's say, we get you on the break, sustained pressure, a corner, set-piece routine, because you will put your men forward for it, that's where we're likely to get you most on that side. So if we end up playing Diaz there, not that I think we will, but if we were to, it's very exciting all the same. But we'll see how it goes.
That's a fair comment.
Perfect. There we go then, guys. That is the team that Paul selected that he thinks is best suited to play against us on Saturday. And now, unfortunately, Liverpool don't have this on their official site. This is amazing. This is genuinely Wolves' website. Look at what we have to deal with. This is ours. This is our version.
The quality drop.
It's just mad. People will probably blame FSG for this, won't they, Mike? Saying
this John W. And you've just lost everyone that's watching this now. They've all left you.
So shout out. This is Anfield. We always use their squad builder, and also there's a few articles down there. If you check them out, I guess you can go read those. Mike.
All right. I'm going to build this team.
Anyway.
Yeah, listen, Ali in goal. I'll let everyone know that I'm building this team with the preface or the belief that our South Americans won't play and that Trent is injured. Okay, so that's how I'm building this team, to keep in mind. So the back 4 would be Robbo left back, as we know. Is Canate still injured or is he ready?
Canate was training today.
I'm going to take that as a sign that he's going to be ready. So it'd be Matip and Canate, Gomez right back. Although personally, I'd probably start Kwanzaa. I wouldn't want to rush Canate.
Are you bothered about what side these two play on? Or
no. Okay, that's probably the sides they'll play on, to be honest.
Joe Gomez, right.
Joe Gomez, right back. Your midfield 3 would be I think I might be wrong, but I think it's going to be Gravenberch.
in the holding.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'll be right, but I think it's going to be Gravenberch. I think it's going to be Szoboszlai. Yeah, right hand side, and
You've
then
remembered.
I think it'll be Jones.
Okay.
I think Endo will be on the bench there. And I think the front three, Salah obviously on the right, picks himself.
No Ben Doak.
He played pretty well, didn't he? Down the middle, Cody Gakpo. He scored on the international break twice, looked very good. The left-hand side, I think we'll see Diego Jota. What do you think?
I'm not confident. Look, no. I said this on a space yesterday. I was Virgil's biggest critic last season, right? Because I know how good he is and I know how good he can play. But I said on a space yesterday, no matter who the opposition is, when he's not in the lineup, I won't be confident. Like, not fully. And I know we've had big wins without him, fine, whatever. But I don't know. I just think he brings something into that defense, even when he's on an off day. Like he
Balance,
has
isn't
that.
it? Yeah.
I don't want to say it because it's so just everyone
Aura.
just thinks
You
it's
want to
so
say
cliche.
aura?
Yeah, he's got the aura, the presence. Attackers used to run away from him, and I know he's not on that level that he was, but I still think he can get back there. I still think he can be the best in the world, which I still think he is on his day. He's obviously just had a bit of a rough spell, but also, no Trent. I'm looking at that team now, and I'm looking at three players that I think would be key for the creativity, and they are Szoboszlai, Salah, and Gakpo. Maybe Jones as well to some extent, but Trent is so key to everything we do, and people again will criticize him until the cats come home. But when he's not there, the people that criticize him all of a sudden think, "Oh no, we don't have Trent now." And there's a big difference because when Trent sees a ball that nobody else in our team can see, apart from Thiago Alcantara or maybe Szoboszlai as well at this stage, Gomez, with all due respect to him, he's been really good this season. He's not going to be able to play those 40-yard diagonals. And that is a big, big problem for me because a lot of our attacks this season have come from Trent with the ball, finding that space and playing it long to Salah or to the other wing. And people will say, oh, it's hoofball. It's not, because Trent, more times than not, when the space is there, the pass is perfect. So I think we lose a lot from that. I still think it's enough to beat Wolves, but I don't think it's going to be like a big win, especially with it being 12:30 on Saturday, the worst time to kick off. And we have history, don't we, Mike, going back through the years. The first game after international break, it can be a bit tough to watch. But like I said, mate, I think there's enough, especially in that front three. There's firepower in there. Gakpo, if this is the lineup we see, he's not going to be playing in midfield, which is where he's been playing this season so far. So it'll be nice to see him up front again or in the false nine, whatever. But yeah, are you entirely convinced by that team?
I have the same qualms you do.
Yeah.
I think, I've put Gravenberch there. It will likely be Endo. I put Gravenberch there because I just want to see him play, as anyone wants to see any new signing play. I think for me, we'll even though we'll miss Trent, I think we won't miss him as much as we used to because we have a lot more composure and creativity in the midfield. Even with McAllister not necessarily being in there, obviously we don't necessarily know, but we expect the South Americans to not start, especially with it being an early
in
kickoff.
training and stuff tomorrow, I believe.
Yes,
so it'll
it's
be
just
sort of touch and go as to whether
on the bench. Yeah. It's what you imagine, isn't it? You imagine they'll all be on the. Our bench will look very strong on Saturday, I tell you now. But I think, listen, you look at Szoboszlai, you look at Jones, Gravenberch, even maybe Harvey Elliott comes in. Endo comes in. These are midfielders that they've got energy, they've got quality, they've got the ability to unlock a defense. Swifty makes a great point there about Elliott, and we don't play through our fullbacks anywhere near as much as we used to either. We play a lot more through our midfield now. So although missing Trent is a loss, I still see enough balance in that team and enough balance in the squad that will be available against Wolves to cause an issue. I think if you do play three at the back, us playing Gakpo is a good counter to that because it'll draw a bit of confusion in the centre backs. Whoever you're playing centrally to deal with him, you can create a bit of space. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I think it's going to be a good game to watch. I do think that.
Hopefully, mate. Hopefully. And guys, we're going to wrap up in a couple of moments, but obviously, like in TAT pod tradition, we have to finish with our predictions. So, coming to the guest first, Paul, What is your bold prediction, mate, for Saturday? Surely you're not going to back your team to lose.
No, I'm not. I mean,
No, good
I think it's
man.
worth me
Good man.
saying I'm not expecting us to win by any stretch of the imagination. For us, the bigger games next Saturday, we're playing Luton. So if you offered a Wolves fan one win at the next 2 matches, they're going to take that instead, the Luton win. I think if we are going to win on Saturday, then we're not going to win by we're not going to keep a clean sheet, so we've got to score 2 goals. So I'll say if we are going to win, it's going to be 2-1.
Who you scoring?
2-1.
Go on, give us the
Yeah,
goal
we need
scorers.
scorers.
I'll put a bet on after this. So,
well, we were talking on our podcast this week. It's about time some of the defenders started chipping in. Craig Dawson's a goal-scoring centre half, really. That's what he's known for. Max Kilman's a big guy, 6'4", doesn't really get on the end of things. So maybe it's time for a defender to pop up with a goal. But I'm going to say that some of the guys that are called out earlier on at the start of the programme, Cunha and Neto, I think those have probably been our 2 best attacking players this season. So I'll say that they'll get a goal each.
all right. 2-1.
There we go. Paul has said 2-1. Mike, what are you saying, mate? Are we going to get some revenge at Molineux?
Yeah, I'm going to go with I mean, to be fair, last time I said Nunes hat-trick and he didn't even score. So I was pretty off with my last prediction, wasn't I? I'll say this time I'm going to say... Sorry, Paul. I'm going to say 3-0. I'm feeling weirdly confident. I think we're going to see goal scorers will be Szoboszlai again. I think Salah will get one. And
You've got to say Jota, haven't you?
yeah, I'm going to say Jota. I've got to be on it. You know what I mean? He scored the international break as well himself. So I'll say 3-0. Jota, Szoboszlai and Salah. And probably, to be honest, judging off who's on VAR and referee, I'm going to say there'll be a dodgy penalty in there probably as well.
I know. Who is
And
it?
a red card.
And a red card.
I'll find out.
If I'm right, it's Paul Tierney, isn't it?
Oh, it could be.
Pretty sure Tierney's on VAR. I might be off. Tierney's just he's known for dodgy.
Michael Oliver has been appointed as a referee with Stuart Burt, Dan Cook
I was
as the
wrong.
4th official.
Still, I don't trust Michael Oliver anyway. So there you go. As the comments
Let me
still
just
say.
double check because this could be for last season.
It's worth saying as well. You've got a cracking record in the league at Molineux. I mean, last season was a real anomaly. Normally, you beat us and we don't score. We've actually got a better record, I think, at Anfield. In our Premier League meetings.
Wow.
Since we've, I mean, I've had a season ticket since 1991. I think that's the only time we've beaten you in the league last season. In that period, but admittedly, we haven't been in the Premier League. I think this is our 9th season in the Premier League in my lifetime.
Wow.
And last season's was an anomaly, wasn't it, really?
Well, hopefully...
for back to the days where you had the likes of Dicko and... is it Sacco?
Sacco, yeah, Benicophobe. They were a great front three for us.
Benicophobe. What a boy. I love
Caballero. Oh, he was a menace. I remember there was a cup game a few years back. Ivan Caballero, I think, yeah.
Helder Costa as well, yeah.
Helder Costa, yeah.
Did Jamie O'Hara play for you lot? Am I mad in thinking that?
Yeah, he's a bit of a pantomime villain with us. Yeah. But yeah, he did play for us for a while.
Didn't like him or?
No. There's a long story with him, but generally he's not exactly a fan's favourite.
Yeah, fair point. I don't like him as a pundit, I'll tell you that much.
I'm actually going to go to VAR myself, and I can confirm that it is Michael Oliver. There's been a few people in the chat saying Paul Tierney.
It says Paul Tierney right there.
But he's on VAR. It's Michael Oliver, the referee. And Mark Scholes. Don't know if he's any relation to Paul, but he's
not
to do with the game as well. My prediction before we wrap up is I'm actually going to say 2-1 to Liverpool. I always say this. I'm quite pessimistic these days. I still back us to win. But I'm going to say 2-1. And like Paul said, I'm going to go with Diogo. But he's going to get the... Is it going to be... I think we're going to go 2 up and then you're going to score second half sort of thing. So I'm going to say Diogo. I'm going to say Salah, of course. And for you, I'm going to say, obviously, Pedro Neto. I think brilliant player. Could definitely cause us a lot of issues. Georgie says 3-1, Gakpo, Salah, Jota, goal for all the front three. That would be very nice. Swifty says 4-0 win. Sorry, Paul. Salah gets 2 and Jota grabs 1, and Nunes off the bench. Listen, we got a lot of time for Nunes goals on this show. But guys, that's all we've got time for tonight. We're going to wrap up there. Thanks a lot for everybody that tuned in. And Paul, do you want to shout out where the people can find you, mate?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Paul Mansell10. Our podcast, our end, is Always Wolves. So if you wanted to ever tune in or interact with any of us, then you can get us through those channels.
Yeah, there's a link to Always Wolves on YouTube in the description. But like Paul said, you can also find them on Twitter with exactly the same name. It's very easy to find. And obviously, you know where to find us, the Anfield Talk on Twitter. And me and the guys will be back on Saturday evening. I'm still undecided whether I'm going to the game, but the beauty for me is I only live an hour away from there, an hour and a half. So it's 12:30. I'll be back in time for a match reaction in the evening. So we will be here, guys, on Saturday. I'm assuming Mike will be here. He's always there, aren't you, Mike?
Cheers. Yeah. No, apparently no life. There
Unfortunately, he's always here.
He loves me, really.
Stream pressure as well, guys. Don't forget. And we'll see you on Saturday.
Yes.
Take care.
Take care.
Cheers.